A salary is the drug they give you when they want you to forget about your dreams.
Welcome to the Corporate Dropout Podcast. I'm your host, Alacia Citro. If you're sick of the corporate hamster wheel and looking to feel inspired and empowered to live a high vibe life as your own boss, you're in the right place. Dare to drop out in 3, 2, 1. Before we start the show, I want to tell you about the business I'm launching. Do you have a business idea, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've started your own business, but you know there are boxes you need to check when it comes to taxes, finance, legal protection, marketing, and more. Same. That's why I founded Thea Collective. Named for the Greek goddess of light, Thea was created to light the path for entrepreneurs. We have the community, courses, and connections that will help every entrepreneur quantum leap and avoid costly mistakes. Learn from experts across professions and get the blueprint you need for your business. Text BIZ, that's B-I-Z, to 949-577-8709 or head to thea-collective.com to learn more. Hello, friends. Today, I am interviewing Elizabeth Rosenberg. She is an entrepreneur, charismatic leader, and visionary who drives authentic change and purposeful impact through her work. As the founder of The Good Advice Company, a marketing and communications consultancy, and with more than 2 decades of experience working with some of the most innovative brands and leaders in the world, Elizabeth taps her knowledge, intuition, and truths to uncover and amplify purpose and ownable narratives. Love that. Elizabeth, thank you for coming on the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's so wild because every time I hear someone read my bio, which I just rewrote, I still feel like an imposter. I know it's all real and I know it's all there, but I'm still like, is that really who I am? Oh my God, I did all those things. That's who I am.
Yeah, I know. Well, and actually, that was going to be one of the things I was going to ask you. What's it been like overcoming the imposter syndrome? Is that still like a daily, or not even a daily, but like a fairly regular battle that happens as you continue leveling up?
You know, I think it's something that everyone experiences, and we at least have a name for it now. So you can recognize what it is, and then you can recognize that everybody experiences it, and then we move on. I think when we're younger, it's much harder to get past that imposter syndrome. You really question why you're in a room. Am I supposed to be in this meeting? What am I supposed to say? But as you get older, I think that feeling is much more fleeting.
I would agree. As you really come into your own and become really secure in who you are as a unique human being, it's like even if someone's doing the exact same thing as you, they're not doing it the exact same way that you are. And there's a lot of value to be had just in that. So that's helped me a lot.
100%. And that, well, right? I mean, it's going to keep happening. But I also think that there's like enough work for everyone. I think that there's this idea that like we have to be the only person that does something. And that is so not the case. I totally agree. You know, there's like however many different kinds of toilet paper. And it was like, everyone still uses all of them.
Right. And if you're the only one doing something, I'm willing to bet probably not a lot of people want it. Right.
It's not needed. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And know what your differentiator is when you are doing it. Because that is also, I think, what kind of helps combat that imposter feeling.
Yes, I totally agree. So let's start with your corporate career. So you've had a very successful career in PR and communications, and you've actually been a corporate dropout, not once, but twice. So tell us about your journey through the corporate world before you became a dropout for the first time.
Sure. I started working in 2001, which was a very, very difficult time to get a job for anybody that was in that, in that process.
The dot-com boom, right?
It was right after it had busted. There was really no jobs to be had anywhere. And it was just, it was hard. But I started in PR and worked for a few different companies. I really did kind of find my place in purpose. I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with Norman Lear, not once, but twice on some voter initiatives. And I worked for Clorox in their kind of like cause-related PR practice. And I, in kind of like 2007, 2008, was actually fired from a job.
Oh, so you're not a dropout by choice.
It's not a dropout by choice. And I have to tell people, I actually tell people this all the time. I have been fired, I have been let go, and I have quit. It's okay to do all of those things. I'm still a very successful corporate leader. And I would not be where I was today if I hadn't had those nudges and pushes and things that kind of like led me into a very different place in my career. And I also don't think that you've like worked in advertising or worked in PR if you haven't been let go or laid off. It is what it is. But that was in 2008 and it was, 2008. I was at a music label, which was such a cool job anyway. I mean, you're working with very amazing people, but there was an acquisition and I was laid off, and I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to freelance until I get a job. And it was 2008. There were not a lot of jobs.
That's when I graduated. So I could commiserate with your 2001 timeline.
And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this again. And my business plan was don't get kicked out of your apartment. And I started freelancing, and my freelancing turned into a successful agency that I had for about 7 years. And every year it was like, wouldn't it be great if you had an office? We're like, wouldn't it be cool to get a new car? And I think that there's this idea that like you can only have a business if you have a business plan. And I want to tell corporate dropouts out there, like, just your business plan should be to pay your bills. Start small and grow from there. There is no shame in that. And do what you love and do what you're good at. And also, I think the first time I was a corporate dropout, I nannied on the side. I had an Etsy shop. Like, I did everything in order to pay my bills. And there is also no shame in that. Having these little side hustles and these little things in order to get stuff done and in order to fund your dreams of being a freelancer and bring an entrepreneur and a solopreneur, do those things. I then went back into the corporate world and actually ended up going into advertising, which I love.
Let me ask you, what made you go back?
Before
you tell the rest of that.
Yeah, I was freelancing for an agency. I had a lot of success. I was noticing that I was actually influencing marketing in some major companies and some major brands, and that was fun. And then a company called Media Arts Lab called, and it was another client of mine that had moved over. And they were going to launch something called World Gallery into the world, and kind of asked my thoughts on doing that. That ended up being shot on iPhone. And it was like, they said, like, would you be interested in staying full time? And I think when there's a brand and a campaign and creative and people that make something so interesting, it's very hard to say no. And in all honesty, I really missed being in an office. I really missed being around people. And I missed that creative culture and collaboration that comes with, and consistency, honestly, that comes with that office experience. I also really missed insurance and like stability and vacation, paid vacation. Oh, good Lord. Oh my God. Paid vacation is awesome. It's something that, like, as an entrepreneur, you don't have, unless you obviously can set up your system or your business properly. And then from there, I went over to another agency that I loved. I had, I think traveled the world. I had worked on one of the most fulfilling, amazing brands that I had ever been privy to even being part of, and worked with some of the most creative people in the world too. It was awesome. But while I was there, I ended up suffering from corporate burnout, where I had a migraine where I lost all of my motor skills and ended up in the hospital. I wrote about that on in an op-ed on Business Insider, and then also on my Medium page. And it's wild because I feel like a lot of people are experiencing what burnout actually means. Our brains are much more, can power through much stronger than our bodies can oftentimes. So we really need to kind of listen to that. And then I went into another agency, and honestly, I loved that job too. I was working with amazing people doing really cool things. And I got to the point where I'd kind of hit the ceiling of my growth there. And I was really kind of like craving this idea of doing something different and going back into entrepreneurship. So it's very different to be an entrepreneur in your early 40s than it is to be an entrepreneur in your late 20s. Like, laws are different, but I set things up much, much smarter than I did last time. The first time I was a DBA, This time I am an S Corp. I have a corporate lawyer. I have a bookkeeper. I have an accountant. I have contractors. I have, social help. I have, what you know and you know what you don't know. And I now know that I need to pay people to do the things that I don't know and spend my time charging for the things that I do.
Or paying people to do the things that you know how to do but don't
want to do. Yeah, right? Like I can bill my clients, but is that the best use of my time?
Yep. I hear you.
But that's an investment, like paying people out for things that you're like, oh, I can just do this myself. My number one advice to everybody is like, A, hire a lawyer. B, that little stuff that you can hire somebody else to do, please outsource it, because it is an awful use of your time.
And it'll be worth it in the long run, because you'll have more of the balance that you left the corporate world to gain, because you're not going to be up. Like for me, I just hired a VA to do all my show notes and all of that, because I was doing it until 10 o'clock at night, the night before an episode would drop, and my family life was suffering. So hire out. It's worth it. So, okay, I want to talk more about what happened with the migraine though. So did you have to take medical leave? Like what happened? How did you come back from that?
No. So I actually struggled. I have struggled with migraine since I was 4 years old. I have a ton of triggers and all of the things, but it was just one of those instances that was just like a perfect storm of a day. Some things had changed at work. We were making a big announcement. Honestly, I was just like super, super stressed out. And I think I wasn't loving the situation and how it was kind of happening. And when that happens to me, my body is like, we're just going to like remove you from the situation physically. But it was a very, very scary experience. I mean, like I drove myself to the hospital and I wasn't even planning on going to the hospital. I was planning on coming home because I had a headache, but in Los Angeles, everything is like 40 minutes away. And as I was on the freeway, I was like, oh my God, this is getting real bad, real quick. And I ended up getting sick on the side of the road and calling my, when you're 35 years old and you're dying in your car, you call your mother. And my mom was like, you are slurring your words. I think you need to go to the hospital. Wow. And I ended up getting to the hospital, and literally like the second I got to the hospital, like I kind of like stumbled into the emergency room and like threw my keys and my wallet at the front desk and like collapsed. Wow. And I had lost like all my motor skills. I couldn't talk. I was hysterically crying. I had, it was I was like a mess. And they're screaming at me, like, what did you take? They thought I was having a drug overdose. And then they like strapped me down and thought I was having a stroke. And then I guess my mom had called my dad, because when I woke up, my dad was there. But I kind of like through all of this figured out that like I was just having a very, very, very bad migraine with a new experience that I had never had before. I had never had where I had lost my motor skills. And then from there, I went on this like wild wellness journey where I literally I had CAT scans. And because at that point too, you're like, I didn't do this to myself. I clearly have a brain tumor and I'm going to die. And I should just start saying goodbye to everyone right now. And then I went to all the doctor's appointments and everybody told me that nothing was wrong with me. Mm. And when that happens, that's when then you need to seek alternative help. You need to talk to your mental health providers. You need to talk to your doctor. You need to figure out like what a health and wellness and journey plan might look like for you. And for me, honestly, it's been crazy. I've done everything. Like I was like, I don't ever want this to happen to me again. This was awful. I did allergy shots 3 times a week for 2 years. I sought therapy. I did past life regressions. I was like, I did Chinese herbs. I'm like, I don't really care if anybody believes in any of this stuff. If somebody told me that I had to like wear my hair curly, walk around backwards and like, that was the new me and I'd never have a migraine again, I'd be like, all right, cool. This is me. So I was willing to try anything. And in honesty, the irony behind all of this is a job change. And now entrepreneurship again has helped significantly because you can find balance in different. I have to exercise. Yeah. I have to take breaks. And when you are a C-suite leader at in a corporate job, life doesn't afford you that.
No, it doesn't. There was an interview I did. It was one of the earlier ones with Dr. Valerie Rain, the author of Patriarchy Stress Disorder. Are you familiar with her at all?
No, but I can't wait to read that.
Oh my gosh. That book honestly changed my life. So I have a very similar story to you. Had like a depressive break after, what was that? 9 months of COVID and not having childcare and like all of that. And went on this deep healing journey for the last year, came across her book. It was so transformative, but she had a very similar experience. She was with patients and she noticed she couldn't smile with one half of her face and like couldn't move. She thought she was having a stroke, drove herself to the hospital like you. And they said, no, this is stress. So she did all this digging and sure enough, it's this inherited trauma, ancestral stuff, and all this stress. And I don't think people realize how much this really does affect you on a physiological level if you don't keep it in check.
So the crazy thing about my story too, is that because I've experienced migraines my entire life, I mean, I came home to 300 something emails and started working the second I got home. I was at work the next day. I mean, like nothing had happened. I think there's also a lot of shame and embarrassment around that happening. Do you know what I mean? Around, not being able to kind of like keep it together, which I think is ridiculous.
Yep.
The idea that stress can lead to to actual physical and mental health issues has got to be normalized. And I mean, if there's anything positive that's come from the pandemic, I think that is one of the things that more and more people are talking about.
Yeah. The
thing that I think is also difficult too is that like there is no silver bullet for healing. What worked for you is not going to work for me, and what worked for me is not going to work for someone else. You really need to figure out what it is that that you need to work on. Yeah. It can be deep-seated trauma from something. It can be ancestral ties. It can be simply just the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
So it is really tough.
And, I love to get woo-woo on the show. So like, I was laughing when you were talking about.
Bring it on. Bring it on. What do you want to know? Yeah.
That's something I've been wanting to do. But like what's helped me, like mushrooms, coaching, what else? Reiki, biofield tuning. Like I do it. My husband thinks I've lost my mind, but like he's supportive though. God bless him. But like everything alternative I will do because I know that I need to unwind this and it's worked. But like what worked for me, to your point, might not work for somebody else. So it's really hard to know what the next move is.
Well, and the irony behind all of this alternative healing, if that's what people want to call it right now, is that it's actually all really ancient.
Yeah.
We're just doing things that people have done thousands and thousands of years ago. Yeah. I mean, for me specifically, Chinese herbs changed my life. They were unbelievable for hormones. They've been great for, GI tract, my skin, everything. And I also, with this woman that I work with, she does energy healing while I'm there too. And it has been, I have sent people who are woo-woo and people who are not, and everyone loves her. So I think that this idea that like what Americans think is healing and what Americans think is the best way to go about kind of trying to address something that is physical is not necessarily the best way.
Totally. Like Western medicine, thank God for it. It certainly has its place, but being open to the quote unquote woo-woo stuff, you're doing yourself a big favor, most likely, by just being open to it, right? And exploring that.
Being open to it. And it's funny because I know that I sound like I'm a huge science believer. Again, I've done it both Eastern and Western on everything. So it is about dabbling, I think, and just trying what's new, what could potentially be new that is old, which is just so weird.
I know, it's all so ancient. Yeah. Well, I love that you shared all that too, because I feel like that is one of the main drivers of people wanting to leave the workforce. 75 million people left their jobs last year, which is mind blowing to me. And so I know that this is a big driver. So just normalizing it and having these conversations is crucial.
Yes. When I put out my burnout story, I still receive emails. And this was in May of 2021. I have gotten,
Can't wait to read it.
I hundreds of notes from people just saying like, thank you for saying this because it makes me not feel so alone. And it's giving me hope that I can feel better.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think that burnout can come from, and I say this a lot, is from physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental instability. You kind of need all of those things to kind of be in balance in order to really feel your best self. And like, that takes a long time. I mean, like my healing journey and my wellness journey, first of all, it's never ending for anyone. We're always
no finish line.
There's no finish line, which is kind of daunting. And if you're thinking about it,
yeah,
but hey, here we are. But at the same time, like what you uncover through it is awesome. It also allows you to kind of like reassess the people and the things that you want in your life.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the best gifts that I got out of the pandemic, was this idea of kind of recurating my inner circle of those people and what that looked like and what I have to offer them and what they have to offer me.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And being open to pruning when necessary without apology and without explanation, like doing what's best for you mentally, physically, spiritually, even though it feels like playing whack-a-mole a lot of the time with that, but like just unapologetically doing what you need to do.
Oh, I remember Oprah talking about this years and years and years ago about her disease to please and constantly saying yes and all that stuff. And it was like my little sister said this the other day, which I really appreciate, which is like, no is a full sentence.
Yes.
You can say thank you. Yeah. You can say thank you at the end if you're being nice, but like, no is a full sentence. That's okay.
Yep.
Don't
and
apologize
honoring
for
that.
saying no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I could go on about this with you all day, but let's shift gears because I want to hear about you founding your company. So you founded the Good Advice Company almost 2 years ago, right after COVID started, it looks like, from your LinkedIn timeline. So what was that like? And also, was there like an aha moment or a sign that led you to go out on your own again?
There was not an aha moment. There were kind of like a few. So I actually, in January of 2020, let me back up a second. January of 2019, had a sit down with my boss, who is my mentor and a very dear friend, who actually ended up naming my new company, and said to him, I'm feeling like I might be on the precipice of burnout again. I really need something to look forward to. I would like to take the month of August off. I realize that is a big ask and that may not be possible, but I'm giving you 8 months. Let's see if we can figure this out. And I said, and if you need, if I can't do it, my last day will be the 31st of July. And he was like, whoa. Now, I had a lot of coaching that helped me come to this place of no emotion, super solution oriented, and an ask that was very realistic. And he said, you're not leaving. We will figure out what we need to do. Thank you for giving us so much time for this. And let's go from there, which we did. I ended up taking that time off. Now, 2 months, 6 weeks before that, I actually ended up on a business trip I was in France and then in Amsterdam, where I got pneumonia and sat in a hotel in Amsterdam for 8 days with pneumonia. Man. And I was like, oh God, this burnout can't come, like this month off can't come soon enough. Like, girl needs to take a break. And then after that, I really had some soul searching about what I wanted, what I was looking for, the growth that I needed. And when I talked to them about my growth, they were super realistic and was just like, this is the job that we need now. And I said, okay, that's not the job that I want to do anymore. I need to do more. So I think, I know it's very scary. And I say this often too, that dropping out of the corporate world, I always recommend to have a plan. I'm really fascinated with all these people that are leaving jobs in the middle of the Great Resignation, with many of them that are just like dropping out of there. And I'm like, that's wild to me. I always recommend having a plan. My plan got like a little side railed. So even if you have a plan, I ended up quitting my job on March 2nd of 2020. And then 2 weeks later, the world closed down. It gave me a lot of time. I mean, like my plan was like, I was going to travel and I was going to do all these things. And then I was going to be gone for 6 months and then hit the ground running in 2021. And the time that I had at home to be quiet and reflect was so unbelievably needed to just change So, and to actually like really plant the seeds of what I wanted to grow. What did that look like? But my business itself has, my book coach, I'm working on some writing about my wellness journey and what that looks like, said to me that like life is not about pivoting, but about pirouetting. And I loved that so much because you're not making these strong pivots into other things, but constantly on like a slow roll of what that change might look like. So my business has been pirouetting the last 2 years. I really started off as like corporate branding and high level strategy, and am now really turned into focusing on C-suite leaders, their personal branding. And I have found in the last couple of years that I'm so disappointed with how, especially I think us in America, talk about our jobs and are only validated by like what we do versus who we are.
Yeah.
So I've completely modernized the bio. I've completely changed what thought leadership can look like to a much more authentic place that really leads to you being grounded in like your purpose and why you're here and what you're supposed to do. But then also leading with that when you are sharing your narrative with the world. And it's really fun. It's like so much more fun.
And it's so needed. Like that was honestly the biggest thing that triggered my depressive break in December of 2020. I had been a top performer my whole career in sales. I actually started at Google the day that you quit your job on March 2nd of 2020. And then a week later, world shuts down. And now I'm like not anywhere close to topping the leaderboard. And I had an identity crisis because my whole worth was tied up in that and achievement. So I'm glad that you're helping to rewrite it because this is epidemic, I think.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully my bio, it's funny because I wrote it, shares that. Because my first sentence of my bio does not say what I do. It says the type of person I am.
Yeah.
And I think if you talk about your legacy and what you want to be known for, and I also think, you know, as we're talking about COVID and all of these people who have passed in the last 2 years, obituaries have been reading like resumes. And it's because LinkedIn is the only public place where you can find information about people immediately. So it's like, there's so many things that have been said where it was like, this person worked here and they did this. And I'm like, oh my God, if somebody says that I worked for this brand in my obituary, I will come back and like haunt everyone. Like that cannot be my legacy. I want people to say that I helped people find their purpose and that I was kind and thoughtful and a visionary, right? You want something bigger for yourself. So we have to own that narrative ourselves. No one else is going to do that for us.
You know, there's interviews where something gets said where I'm like, oh, I'm going to be ruminating on that for a while. And that would be it. Like starting with the end in mind. I was actually just talking about this on a TV segment last week. Like if you're at your funeral, what do you want the eulogy to be? Like start with that in mind and then work back from there. Like I certainly would not want it to be my resume. Like, wow, that's so powerful.
But I think we have so many amazing brands in America, like the two brands that we worked with, that when you say that you worked for them, they're immediately validating.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I stayed so long. It was an ego thing. I loved saying I worked at Google. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the reality is you learn a lot working at those companies, but it's just a blip. It's not your purpose. It's not your legacy.
Yes. I've said on a few episodes, like, I know God didn't put me on the earth to sell cloud infrastructure. It's like, you have to detach from that identity and like, why are you actually here? Like, what are the God-given gifts that you can apply and serve and make an impact with, you know?
But also to think about what are your superpowers in that job and why were you really good at your job? And how can you use that to really hone in on who you are?
Yeah.
Your skills ladder up to who you are, not where you worked.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah. So when you were creating the business, it sounds like, you know, that happened on a little bit of a different timeline than you were expecting. What were some of the challenges that you faced? Like, was it hard creating a brand new business in the pandemic? What was that like?
First of all, naming a company is truly the hardest thing to any corporate dropout out there. Naming a company is way harder than naming a child. Getting a website for a company is way harder than anything in the world. Finding a designer that you really like it is hilarious because I am a brander. I am a marketer. I am a communicator. Like, it is so much easier to do it for somebody else than it is for you. And I had a phone call with my mentor, Matt Jarvis. Again, I can't speak highly enough about him. He's chairman at 72 and Sunny, and is just the most amazing man. And I was panicking. I mean, my lawyer was like, you got to have a name here soon. Like, this needs to happen. And I was talking on the phone and I'm like, I'm having a really hard time finding a name. And he was like, and he's a strategist at his core. And he's like, you have amazing business intuition. You give great advice. And he was like, what about the Good Advice Company? And I was like, you're high. There's no way that's available. And I start like Googling and I'm like, oh my God. I was like, the website is available. The socials are available. Like, how is this happening? And he was like, buy it all. And he goes, and if you don't use it, I'll use it. Let's just sit on it and see what happens. And I'm like, okay. And I swear to God, it was like a light bulb. It was like, okay, I'm like, that's it. This is it. And I think my logo came together in like a week. My website was done in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like, it all
That's
just
impressive.
like fell together. I know, right? Then I was like on a mission. It all fell together super, super fast. And it is the thing that I still get the most compliments on, is like, I love the name of your company, and like, it feels so on brand for you. And I think that is just the nicest thing, the nicest thing that anybody can say to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after you figured out the name, how did you go about acquiring clients? Like, was it challenging to build the book of business in 2020 when the world was upside down? Still is, but we've acclimated.
Yeah. You know, the stars aligned. And I say that I am a PR person where networking is at the core of what I do. I mean, I am a people person through and through. I mean, like, I'm a twin. It was like the universe was like, you need someone to talk to in the womb. So we gave you a friend. I could talk to a wall. So networking is my favorite thing. So when and having worked in several agencies, you just have so many clients and so many people that it connects. And I think marketers in general, like, they move jobs very often. So, and I worked for two of like the most well-known agencies in the industry. So I had a very big little black book of people that I could call and reach out to. I think that learning how to use LinkedIn and really utilizing that networking tool properly is unbelievably important as an entrepreneur. Connecting with people new and old. That is another beautiful thing that came out of the pandemic, is people that you used to have to fly to New York to have a meeting with, we're now willing to do 30-minute coffee Zooms with you. There are people that I have been working with for 2 years that I have never met in person.
Isn't it so weird too, when you initially do meet those people in person? It's like, wait, we've never met, but I feel like I know you so well.
I mean, because you've been through the trenches with them at this point, with so many, things. And also, 2020 and 2021 were years where PR was like desperately needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rebrand positioning, finding the purpose of your company, individuals really looking for what their purpose was. I think a lot of C-suite leaders, even if they're super, super successful, are very confused about, why am I here and what am I doing? Mm-hmm. But there were a lot of businesses that were in crisis and really needed some help. So business was very, I think, good for me. But at the same time, it was like, as my coach says to me, which I know you said coaching, that's the other advice I can always give everybody, like, invest in all the coaching.
Yep.
Business was very kind to me, but it was like, I'm sorry, my coach had said to me, your business buffet eyes are way too big. Your professional buffet. Like, I just was like, oh my God, there's an opportunity here. And, I want to do this. And as an entrepreneur, you really, really have to practice essentialism. A great book, by the way. I don't know if you've read that book. It's fantastic.
I haven't. I'm writing it down though.
But this idea of you can do one or two things really, really well, And it's much better than doing a bunch of things meh. And I think because we were inside and because we were so focused on Zooms and, that kind of stuff, like it almost gave some people too many things to do. Like I saw like sourdough starters and I was like, well, clearly I need to learn how to make bread.
I think I'm one of the only people that didn't jump on that. I was like, no, I'm good.
I do have to say homemade sourdough bread is delicious. It was, So, but it was a very, very exciting year, but also, I kind of ironically like burned out talking about burnout.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It became a hot topic. So you were probably talking about it all the time.
All the time. And then I loved being able to help, but at the same time, didn't have boundaries around, that kind of situation either.
Yeah. And the need to protect your energy because, you saving everyone from burnout then burns you out. So, and then you're no good to anybody, right? Yeah. It's a balance for sure. Yeah. Let me ask you in founding the business and, now it's been almost 2 years. What's been the best part for you?
The best part is the ability to work with people that I really want to work with. You can say yes to people. You can say no to people. And I think curating a client list of people that I get excited to learn from and talk to every day. The worst part, it's funny. The stress of working within a company is very, very, very different than the stress of an entrepreneur.
Very.
You're always kind of thinking about what is that next step? Am I building an agency? Am I building a consultancy? Do I want to hire people? Do I want to do this? And in many ways, that's super exciting because it always kind of has you thinking, but it can also be very overwhelming. So having, I think, the right advisors around you is really important. I don't remember who said this, but you kind of have to build your own board of advisors.
Yes, absolutely.
Like you need like 6 to 8 people within your network that you can call and be like, can you look at my proposal? I just had this client come in and this is weird. Can you and having that personal board of advisors is a huge, huge asset to any entrepreneur that can really help you think about what the future looks like and can be honest with you. You need honest people around you.
Yep. And I think the hard part and being lonely too, because it's just you now. So if you don't have like an entrepreneur crew that you can bounce those ideas off of, it can be hard.
Yeah. I did end up getting, you're not seeing it today because it's crazy, but I ended up getting an office because I really craved that community feeling and I did miss being around people. So last year I got an office and it's lovely to go to. It's nice just to, and honestly, it's like all entrepreneurs around me.
Yeah.
So even if it's a couple days a week, do that.
Yep. Yeah. See, I get really distracted. So I actually prefer to like be working at home. I was working at home before it was cool. So I love it, but I definitely need to change the scenery every now and then, or you can go stir crazy. And I think having like a dedicated space to work in too, like if you're an entrepreneur, like don't work at the dining room table, like set up another area where you can work so that you're not like blurring the lines between personal time and work time, which is there a line when you're an entrepreneur, but the best that you can do.
Well, you have to create those boundaries. All of my clients know that I do not do conference calls and meetings on Fridays. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all know this because otherwise I just would never get anything actually done.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah. Do you call that a CEO day? I've just heard that term recently and I love it. Now I've implemented it too.
I don't, but I might. I actually really like that's a great phrase.
Feel free to use it.
Everyone just knows.
With it. Can't take credit.
Everyone just knows no meeting Fridays.
Yeah. No, I think that's really wise.
Finding clients who respect your boundaries. You really need to train the people that you're working with properly to make sure that they're listening to what you need.
Yeah, setting expectations at the beginning and also too, like back to the whole planning piece, like not getting yourself into such a cash crunch where you're going to take on any client just because you need the money. Like it really needs to be aligned or otherwise, again, you go back to the burnout.
100%. My coach, his name is Greg Sales. I've worked with him for, oh my God, like 6 years now. He's fantastic. But he said to me, you can't dance with the yeses if your dance card is full of no's. And I was like, that's so true. He's like, if you just keep saying yes to the no's, the yes is going to come by and you're not going to have the time to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is so true. You just, again, discernment around all of that stuff is hard.
Yes, especially when you're starting out. Well, this was so great. I could talk to you for like hours. Love your energy, love your vibe, and the fact that you've done a past life regression. Like immediately, I was like, oh yeah, no, her and I would be like besties. So you're coming back tomorrow. You're going to do a business tip, and you're going to share 5 tips on how to combat burnout. So everyone, be sure to come back for that. And before we sign off, Elizabeth, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? And how can they work with you?
Yeah, thank you. My website is thegoodadvicecompany.com. And I always recommend that people follow me on LinkedIn. It is the place where I feel like I can be most authentically true to myself and network away.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. This was a pleasure and looking forward to tomorrow's episode.
Thank you.
This episode was brought to you by Thea Collective, the learning community I founded for entrepreneurs. Text BIZ, that's B-I-Z, to 949-577-8709 or head to thea-collective.com. That's THEIA-collective.com to learn more. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, please help me get the word out about the corporate dropout by screenshotting and sharing this on social. I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and review as well. And I do this show for you, and I want to hear from you. So tell me, what is it that you want more of? Text me at 949-541-0951 or slide into the DMs at Corporate Dropout Official or Alicia Citro with 2 underscores. Until next time.